Lynni again, and today's video is going to be about my April bullet journal spreads. The theme/vibe I was going for was a magical rose garden. To start off, I've got my title page, and I got inspired by a few fonts I saw on Pinterest of bubble letters with flowers in between them, like what I'm doing, except I'm making the flowers a lot simpler with just a swirl as the rose and a couple leaves. I decided to put my mini calendar under the title, and I thought it'd be really cute to have it surrounded by a heart made of roses. So that's what I did. I drew everything out because that's just how I like to plan, but honestly you could skip that step and just color in little blobs with your color palette of choice, because I'm going to go in afterwards with a fine liner to draw in all the details anyway. I personally used 3 different shades of red/pinks. Then you just want to go in and draw a leaf or 2 to go with each flower. Again, I personally used 3 shades of green to go with each of the different rose colors. Then I went in with a different green for the little leaf embellishments and a yellow for the little circle plant embellishments. And like I mentioned earlier, after everything was colored in, I drew in the outlines and details with fine liners before writing in the calendar. Originally, I was just gonna stop there, but I thought the page looked a bit too empty like that, so I drew a stem and leaves onto the heart of roses to make it look like a flower itself. Although now, it kind of reminds me of a wand, but I guess that works out because I wanted a magical garden anyway. On the left side, I have my usual quote page. I decided to draw a simple version of a pavilion in a field of roses to match the theme. First, I just drew a really simple small pavilion on the top left corner, and then I drew a simple stone pathway leading out of it into the bottom. After that, I just layered different shades of green as blobs as trees in the background, and then I used the same greens as scribbles on the bottom to make it look like bushes/grass for the roses next to the path. I'm sure if you have better artistic skills than me, there's better ways to execute this, but I wanted it simple and quick, so I used blobs and scribbles, don't judge me. And the quote I chose this time says, "When a flower doesn't bloom, you fix the environment in which it grows, not the flower." I picked this quote because I thought it'd be a nice reminder to myself that sometimes, just sometimes, I'm not the reason for my failures, and that it's not that there's something inherently wrong with me, but that maybe the environment I'm in isn't the most suitable for me to thrive, and so it'd be worth a try to make small, easy changes in my environment that can help me feel better and therefore do better. For those of you who don't know, I live with my boyfriend and his family currently, and we do want to move out, but I'm sure everyone knows the cost of houses doesn't make that very easy nowadays. And don't get me wrong, I love his parents and his family. I always tell him that he's very lucky to have a family like them that's so unproblematic. There's barely any family drama, which I'm very unused to. But I've been reading a lot about the emotional cost of living at home with your parents, because there were these negative feelings catching up to me, and I was feeling just down and burnt out even though I wasn't doing that much, and I was trying to just make sense of my feelings. And it made me feel a bit better after looking it up, because I found out that a lot of people are going through a similar thing, especially recently post-COVID. There was an article on Refinery 29 from a few years ago that said that it's common for people to regress psychologically when they're faced with a tense situation around their family. And that really resonated with me, because although my family and my boyfriend's family are all really great people, and I'm extremely thankful we get to live with and near them all, I moved away to a different state in 2018 for college, and a big part of the reason I did that was to get away from my parents and relatives in order to have the freedom to just comfortably be myself and figure out myself without the judgment, or not even judgment, but without people having an image of me that no longer seemed genuine to me. And I actually sometimes feel like that image was never genuine, because I used to always put myself into a box growing up based on the comments that adults would make about me. And that box was extremely hard to break out of, which is why I wanted to go to a different place for college where no one knew me and I wouldn't be starting in a box. Unfortunately, my time there got cut short because of COVID, so I was only there for about 1.5 years before moving back home. So I feel like that's also why I'm really frustrated now, still living at home, because I feel like I was just making progress to be my own person, but then I had to move back. And as time goes by, I'm regressing more and more into like high school me instead of who I'm comfortable being, which is really upsetting. I don't know if that makes any sense. Sorry for the tangent, but if anyone's going through a similar thing, I would love to hear about it in the comments. But anyway, next we have the monthly calendar page. I also left some space at the bottom for a monthly playlist. I used the bubble letter rose font again for the word April, and I colored in the lines where there would be writing. I actually later went over the pink with red because I didn't like how the pink turned out. I also drew a rose on top of a love letter next to the April playlist. Then I just labeled the days of the week and dates on the calendar. On the next page is my mood tracker. I left space at the top for washi tape that I already measured the width of beforehand. I decided on 5 shades of red/pinks for the different feelings, and then for the actual tracker part, I drew kind of like a bubble version of like a simple squiggly rose that I can color in each day. Then below those big tracker roses, I drew a few of the same style roses but just not the bubble version. And then I just filled in the rest of the space with stems and leaves, and I put the washi tape on top and the page was finished. Following those pages, we have my habit tracker and productivity tracker. Again, for my habit tracker, I left space at the top for a rose washi tape that I had, which actually inspired the design of this page. I colored in red lines for where I'd write the habits and left space in between each to write out a mini calendar. Then in between the two sides of habits, I drew a rose design with a moon inspired by the washi tape from the previous page, and a bunch of swirls, which is inspired by the rose washi tape that you'll soon see. I also added in a few sparkles at the end to fill out the page.
You thought that moving to LA would solve the fears you never faced, but I knew you keep running away. For the 6 years that I stayed, wanted to believe that you could change, but I never thought it could end this way.
And then on the right side is my productivity tracker. I decided that I wanted a pretty simple tracker this time with a box for each hour that I work on something. And when I complete an hour, I can just color in a box and write like a shortened version of whatever subject I was working on, like KOR for studying Korean, kind of like how colleges label your classes. Then I decorated the edges with roses by coloring blobs again. I made mine star shapes, but you can honestly do whatever shape you want. And then I added in the leaves and finally some leaf and sparkle embellishments. I used the same colors as the title page, rose heart by the way, to tie it all in and make it more cohesive. Then I went in with a black fine liner to draw in the rose and leaf details. Finally, we're on to the weekly spreads. April is once again in the bubble rose font. I wrote out a mini calendar on the top left and then colored in where the headings would go for the days of the week. I later went over the pink with red on this page too because I just liked it better. I just made each day a simple rectangular box and I added a box for the weekly task. Although, I guess I should have named it like bi-weekly task because it's for 2 weeks, but whatever. I made boxes for little doodles and left room for a quote with the leftover space at the bottom. In one box, I drew the rose from the mood tracker, and in the other box, I drew a little book surrounded by mini roses because I always picture a girl reading a book whenever I think of a magical garden.
Close all of my blinds. I'll read or write and work and hope you'll finally leave my mind. But you're still dancing in the air. Still feel your hands run through my hair. I try and occupy my mind, but I can't hide. You're everywhere, everywhere. You're everywhere. No, everywhere, everywhere.
On the next page, I'm doing pretty much the same layout for the next 2 weeks, although this is when I decided to fully commit to changing all the headlines to red, so I actually started out with the right red this time instead of pink. I left space on the top this time, and I decided to fill it up with yet another variation of roses. It's actually the same as the ones I drew on the title page, except I went in first with the fine liner this time, and I added in leaves and a couple of flower buds. And then instead of coloring it in normally, like with solid colors, I drew a striped pattern on half of the petals of each rose. They're just like randomly spaced out. And also on one side of each leaf. Then I went back and colored in the solid white spaces with a red marker. I was actually planning on leaving it at that for like a bold red and black print look, but I decided I wanted a little bit more color, so I used a light green to color in the leaves. This box is actually the part I'm most proud of out of everything in this monthly setup. I don't know why, like it's just really satisfying to me. And lastly, we have the final page of the weekly spreads. I laid out everything the same way, except I continued the title to say memories on the next page, which is where I plan to do like a little collage of pictures at the end of the month. So all I needed was the title right now. Because there were only 3 days left, I had enough space for 3 boxes for doodles and a quote. I started with the smallest box and filled it with the star-shaped blob roses because it was the easiest to do in a small space. Then for the more vertical box on top, I was inspired by the rose in the glass dome thing from Beauty and the Beast. So yeah, I just drew like a really simple version of that. And lastly, in the bottom box, I drew a bench surrounded by rose bushes and trees because there's always a bench in a cute garden. Like it gives me main character vibes. And again, I used like just scribbles and blobs for the trees and bushes. And I went in with fine liner to draw in the rose detail. I also drew the bench pretty simply, and I just tried to make it look a little fancier by drawing the little swirl designs. And yeah, that's the last of my spreads for today. Thank you so much for watching. And please let me know if you liked this more like talky style video, or if I should just go back to explaining things simply and just letting the background music play, kind of like in my previous videos. And yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Bye!
I took a plane.